Is dentistry still worth it? If you are a dental student right now, sitting on $400,000 or $500,000 of student loan debt, looking at the job market, looking at the corporate takeovers, and looking at the inflation numbers, that question is probably keeping you up at night. You hear the rumors, you hear the older dentists complaining that the golden age is dead. You hear about insurance reimbursements dropping while your tuition keeps climbing. And deep down, you have this terrifying thought: did I just buy a winning lottery ticket, or did I just sign up for a lifetime of debt and stress for a job that doesn't pay what it used to? Today, I'm going to give you the honest, unfiltered answer that your dental school professors probably won't. And I'm going to warn you, for a lot of you watching this, the answer is probably no. But for a select few, it still is the best career in the world. Now let's talk about why. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Ryan with DDS. I talk to a lot of dental students and new grads, and the vibe out there right now is different than it was 10 or even 5 years ago. There's a lot of anxiety, and honestly, your anxiety is valid. The landscape of dentistry has fundamentally shifted. The days of graduating, hanging a shingle, doing zero marketing, having zero business skills, and automatically retiring rich at 55, those days are totally gone. They died about 15 years ago. So if you are looking for someone to pat you on the head and tell you everything is fine, just focus on your margins and the money will follow, you are on the wrong channel. We need to look at the data. We need to talk about the financial squeeze. But more importantly, we need to talk about the soft skills gap that is absolutely destroying the careers of new dentists before they even start. Because the biggest threat to your success isn't the economy, and it isn't the DSOs. It might actually be your expectations. Let's start with the math, because the math doesn't care about your feelings. If we look at the data from the ADA Health Policy Institute, we can see a very clear, very uncomfortable trend. If you adjust for inflation, the average income for a general dentist actually peaked around 2005. Since then, the real earnings, meaning what your money can actually buy, have been largely flat or even declining in many years. Think about that. You are working just as hard, if not harder, than a dentist did 20 years ago, but your purchasing power has gone down dramatically. Now, why is this happening? Well, it's the squeeze. On one side, you have overhead, staff costs, supplies, lab, rent. Inflation has driven all of those up massively. A box of gloves costs way more than in 2005. But on the other side, you have insurance reimbursements. Insurance maximums have been stuck at $1,000 or $1,500 since the 70s. And the fees they pay you for a prophy or a crown, in many cases, these numbers haven't budged in a decade. So your costs are going up and your pay per procedure is staying the same. That is a recipe for shrinking margins. Then you throw in the debt. In the 80s and 90s, a dentist would graduate with a debt to income ratio of maybe 1-to-1, maybe $80,000 in debt for an $80,000 starting salary. Today, it's common to see students with $500,000 in debt fighting for an associate job that pays $150,000. That is a 3-to-1 ratio, and it's often much worse than that. That margin for error that you used to have is gone. You can no longer afford to just be average and expect to pay off that mountain of debt comfortably. This brings me to the biggest problem that I see when interviewing new associates. It's that golden ticket fallacy. There is this pervasive belief in dental school that your DDS or your DMD degree is a winning lottery ticket. You think, I suffered through 4 years, I passed the boards, I paid my tuition, and all the world owes me a high 6-figure income. And I hate to be the one to tell you this, but the world doesn't owe you anything. The market does not care about your GPA, doesn't care how hard you studied for your anatomy final, and it certainly doesn't care how much debt you have. The degree gets you a seat at the table, and that's it. It does not guarantee you that you'll get fed. I interview dentists all the time for my practices, and I'm going to be really honest with you. I can tell within the first 5 minutes of an interview if a candidate is going to make it or if they are going to really struggle. And it has nothing to do with their hand skills. I haven't even seen them prep a tooth yet. It's the vibe, it's the hunger. I see candidates come in who look good on paper, but they have no drive. They're passive. They think that the hard work finished at graduation. They have average or worse communication skills. They can't hold eye contact, and they lack that fire. When I talk to those dentists, I know immediately they are going to have a really, really hard time being successful, because in 2025, just being a dentist isn't enough to be successful. Here is a secret that no one teaches you in your clinical rotations. Communication is the only skill that actually pays the bills. You can have the best hands in the state. You can produce margins that look like they were cut by a laser, but if you have the personality of a wet mop, you will be broke. Dentistry is a relationship business. Patients do not buy crowns, they buy trust. If you cannot look a patient in the eye, connect with them as a human being, and clearly articulate the value of the treatment, you are just a commodity to them. The equation for success is essentially clinical skill multiplied by your communication skill. If your clinical skill is a 10 out of 10, but your communication is a 0, 10 times 0 is still 0. You will have an empty schedule and a low collection rate and a very frustrating career. I see so many young dentists who ignore this. They spend thousands of hours learning a new suture technique, but won't read a single book on leadership or sales psychology. If you aren't willing to master the people side of the business, the financial numbers I mentioned earlier are going to crush you. The other thing that we need to clear up is the nature of the work itself. Dentistry is not a passive income job. It is not a hide in your cubicle and send emails job. Dentistry is blue collar work disguised in a white coat. It is manual labor. It can be backbreaking. It can be neck straining, high stress physical work. You only get paid when your hands are moving. If you are lazy or if you're looking for an easy ride to a high income, get out now. Seriously, save yourself the tuition money. New grads, they often hit a wall about 90 days into their first job. They aren't used to the mental stamina required to make 500 clinical and business decisions in a day while managing patient emotions and staff conflicts. It's pretty exhausting. The dentists who are winning in this environment, the ones making 500,000, 700,000, or $1 million a year, they aren't just lucky. They are the ones showing up early. They're the ones staying late to check lab cases. They are the ones taking CE on their weekends while their peers are partying or relaxing. Success in dentistry requires grit. If you aren't a hard worker, if you aren't driven to constantly improve, this profession will chew you up. So let's get back to the original question. Is dentistry still worth it in 2025? Well, here's my honest answer. It depends on which dentist that you decide to be. If you plan to be the average dentist, if you plan to rely solely on your degree, do the bare minimum continuing education, and then rely entirely on insurance and ignore the business and communication side of things, then no, it's not really worth it. The math no longer works for the average dentist. You will be stressed, you'll be in debt for decades, and you'll burn out. However, if you are willing to be an outlier, if you're willing to treat this profession like a business athlete, then yes, it's absolutely worth it. In fact, the ceiling for the top 1% of dentists is higher today than it ever has been. Why? Well, because the dentistry we can do today is incredible. Implants, 3D printing, full arch rehabs, and more importantly, because so many of our competitors can be lazy. The decline in the average income is actually an opportunity for you to dominate if you stop acting like an average dentist. If you master communication, if you embrace the grind, and if you treat your practice like a business, you can still build a life of incredible freedom and wealth that very few other professions can offer. The choice is yours. You can be a statistic or you can be a success story, but don't expect the degree to do the work for you. If you're a student and you're scared by what I just said, good. Use that fear. Let it drive you to learn the things they aren't teaching you in school. And that's exactly what we do at this channel. We teach the other half of dentistry, the business, the leadership, and the mindset. So if you're ready to do the work, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Talk about what is your biggest fear about graduating right now? Is it the debt? Is it the DSOs, the clinical speed? Let me know below. Dentistry is pretty hard, but for the right person, it still is the best job in the world. Let's get to work, and I'll see you in the next video.